Students, I hope it is clearly visible to you. So students, the summer has come. Okay, so now today I will be covering that how we can preserve the nutrient in our food. Okay, so this is a must knowledge not only for the student but also for their parents also. Okay, so how we can store the nutrients? There are two steps. Okay, where and how we can preserve the food nutrition. Okay, first we can preserve the nutrient, okay, during storage. Okay, so it's not like that you will buy all the food, okay, and eat it in the one day. Okay, so you will store also, okay, for the use. Okay, so at that stage we can preserve the nutrient. And the second is while during the cooking, okay, or while eating. Okay, so we will try to understand how during cooking we can preserve our nutrient food, okay, in the food. So students, so first of all we'll talk about the food storage. Okay, so we have to keep cold food cold. Okay, so the rule is keep cold food cold. Okay, so what are the example of student cold food? So there are like the cold food example is the like milk, okay, fruits and veggies. Okay, so these students, when we are buying, they are cold, right? So we have to keep them cold. Okay, if we want to preserve their nutrient. So how we can keep them cold? So we have to store them in a dark position, in dark place where there is minimum sunlight. Okay, and we can keep them in the fridge also. Okay, now suppose if we are storing the pulses, okay, what we can do? So or some powders, what we can do? So we have to store them in the, okay, airtight containers. Okay, so airtight containers. So why airtight conditions are required? Because if there is air, it will attract the moisture also, humidity also, and it will lead to the food spoilage. Okay, so it is very important to store them into the airtight container. And again I told you they should be stored in the dry place. Okay, the dry place should not have the humidity, because if there is a humidity, then microorganism will spoil your food. Okay, so those who has just joined this video, I will tell you that it is summer has come and it is very important to preserve nutrient, okay, in our food. So how we can store our food, preserve our nutrients? So we have to do it in either when we are storing our food or either when we are cooking our food. Okay, so the first rule for storing the preserving your nutrient in the food is we have to keep cold food cold. Okay, so this is very important for student as well as their parents. Okay, so the first rule is keep cold food and food cold. So if we are buying the milk, we are buying the fruits, we are buying the vegetables. Okay, so they are, okay, cold, they are not very hot, right? So once we buy them and bring it in our home, how we can preserve the nutrient in them? So we have to keep them either in a cold dry place, or we have to keep them in the fridge. Okay, so this will lock the nutrient inside them. Okay, and if they are dry, okay, and they have high chances of capturing the moisture, then you have to keep it in the dry place that is devoid of the humidity. Okay, and we have to keep them in the airtight container. Okay, now especially this is very important, okay, during cooking. So this mistake is often done by adults also, people like us also, we are doing it. So what we are doing, we are overwashing. So we have to wash properly. Okay, so we should not like remove the upper layer. So we have to wash gently. Okay, the right way is to scrub the vegetable lightly. Okay, and instead of peeling, okay, like if you are peeling the apple, it's better to scrub them. So what will have, why it is better to scrub them? Because there are several vitamins that are found just under the skin. So instead of harsh peeling or taking out the topmost layer, okay, in a big chunk, you have to do it very gently. Okay, to save the vitamins. Okay, then, okay, this is again for the parents. What do you think is the best way to cook? Okay, so the best way of cooking is not frying. The best way of cooking is steaming. Okay, you have to steam your food. That is the very best for your health. You can roast also your food, and you can grill the food. Okay, so these three ways, it will make your retain the nutrient of your food. Okay, okay, and it will provide the maximum food nutrient to you. Okay. And the last mistake what we are doing, okay, we are usually overcooking our vegetables. So overcooking is very harmful. So why? Because overcooking will lead to the destruction of several vitamins. Okay. So now this is for this, we know the last point, that we have to eat always fresh. Okay. So why eating the fresh food is essential for us? Because the fresh food will have the highest moisture, they will also have the highest nutrient content. Okay. So by following these tips during the storage and during cooking, we can preserve nutrient in our food. Okay students. Okay, now this is summer time. Okay, so we can preserve our food also. Okay, so do you know what are the food preservation method? Okay, so there are basically two types of food preservation method. One is the traditional method. Okay students, this has been followed by the generations. Okay, so you are doing it, your grandmothers are doing, their grandmothers are doing. Okay, food preservation, this is very important, everybody should know this. Okay, because it is very essential for this generation or for the next generation also, to how to preserve their food. Because if there is a growing population, then there will be at certain time there will be scarcity of food. So this stored food, if they your kids know how to preserve the food, it will be not very difficult for them. Okay, so the traditional method we all know is drying. Okay, so again drying, there are two methods. So we can do the air drying also. Okay, and we can do the sun dry. Okay, so both these methods, they are used from the ancient time, since there was no fridge at that time. And what we are storing through this method, we are storing the dry fruits and the vegetables. Okay, so apart from this, the another method is the salting and the sugaring. Okay, so salting and the sugaring is the very best, okay, way for traditional method for preserving your food. Okay, so salting, we know that what we are, the example is pickling. Okay, so if we are pickling the vegetable, what we are doing, we are adding the salt. Okay, and if we are preparing the jams and jellies, so we are, what we are adding, we are adding the sugar. Okay, now both the salt and sugar will perform the same function. So what they are doing, this salt and the sugar, they are taking the moisture out of the food or the fruit or the food or the veggies. Okay, so if there is less moisture, the chances of spoilage is very less. Okay, because the bacteria, the microorganism, the fungi, they will thrive wherever they will find the moisture. Okay, so other traditional method is the pickling. Okay, I already told you. So pickling we can just do by addition of the salt or the sugar also, but instead we can also add the acidic media. Okay, so usually we are adding the vinegar. So the acid along with the salt, it will prevent the microorganism growth. Okay, so what are the common pickled item? The cucumber, onions and the vegetables. Okay, and the last method is the fermentation. Okay, so fermentation is what? So here student, in all this method, the drying, salting, sugaring and the pickling, we are trying to avoid the microorganism growth. Okay, but in the process of the fermentation, we are encouraging the growth of microorganism. But what kind of microorganism? We are encouraging the growth of microorganisms that are very beneficial for us. Okay, example, when we are setting a curd, we all eat curd, right? Curd, yogurt. So what are they? They are the live microorganisms. Okay, so we are consuming the curd and the yogurt are the example of the live microorganism. These organisms are very beneficial for our gut health. Okay, so we are promoting or encouraging the growth of beneficial microorganisms. Okay, now if we talk about the modern method of the food preservation, then we all know that there is a refrigeration. Okay, and then there is a second method is the freezing. These two are completely different method. Okay, so in the refrigeration, we are keeping our food at low temperature. Generally we are keeping around 1 to 5 degrees Celsius. Okay, so what will happen during the refrigeration, it will slow down, the low temperature will slow down the microbial growth. Okay, then However, there is a difference between refrigeration and the freezing. The refrigeration is done at 1 to 5 degrees Celsius, whereas the freezing is done below minus 18 degrees Celsius. Okay. So what will happen if you keep your food in the freezing? So it will immediately stop the microbial growth and its activity. Okay. So this is the second method. The third is the canning. So nowadays we see lots of packaged food. Okay. So those food that are in the can, okay, they are known as canned food. Okay, so what we are doing when we are canning, so we will heat the food. Okay, but how we will heat the food? We will heat the food in the airtight, okay, container. The food is inside, they will close the lid, okay, and heat it. So what will happen? All those microorganisms, okay, that are inside the lid, okay, they will die due to the heating. Okay, and there is no space for entering of the new organisms. Okay, so whatever microorganisms they are there, it will be killed during the process of the canning. Okay, then pasteurization, this is very important, student, everybody know this. Okay, so what is the most famous example of the pasteurization is milk. So we are preserving our milk, okay, by pasteurization. So what does pasteurization means? In this process of pasteurization, we will heat a liquid. Suppose we will heat a milk, okay, to a very high temperature, okay, specific temperature, for a set period of time. Why? Because if we are heating a particular liquid to a specific temperature for a set of time, it will kill most of the harmful bacteria. Okay. Then the other modern method of our food preservation is the irradiation. Okay, so this is used in the industries. Okay, so what will happen? They will expose your food to ionizing radiation like gamma rays or x-rays for a very short duration, okay, to kill the microorganisms. So in addition to that, the method for the modern method for the food preservation is the addition of the chemical preservative. So this is the most common and method, okay, for preserving our food. And if you buy any packaged food, you can just go and check the label. Okay, so if you buy a chips or like anything that is packed in the food, your food, you can just check the label. They will have certain chemical preservative. Okay, so these preservatives, they are added, okay, into them, so that they can increase the shelf life of those food product. Okay, so example here is the sodium benzoate. So this is very common addition. Okay, so student, these are the method. Okay, first we understood why it is very important to preserve nutrient in the food and how we can do it during the storage and during cooking. And then we try to understand that what are the traditional method for the food preservation. Okay, so the traditional method include, we understood drying, salting, sugaring, pickling and the fermentation. And if you talk about the modern method for the food preservation, then refrigeration, freezing, canning, pasteurization, irradiation and chemical preservatives. Okay, so these are the various methods. Thank you for this slide.